Cindy had a wonderful bone. It was delicious. She sat on the grass and got comfortable and began to gnaw at it. She'd never tasted anything so delicious before. It had been a lovely day. The sky was still blue, but soon the sun would be going down and the shadows would be growing longer. Cindy looked around. Was her bone safe? Someone might steal it when she wasn't around. She couldn't guard it all night long. Where should she bury her bone? She looked around. Should she bury it in the lawn next to the swimming pool? She set the bone down on the grass and looked around. There were some wallabies in the paddock. Maybe one of the wallabies would tell another dog where the bone was. Maybe this wasn't a good place. Should she bury it next to the garden? She set the bone down in the dirt and looked around. There were several big bees buzzing around. Maybe one of the bees would tell another dog where her bone was. Maybe this wasn't a good place. Cindy picked the bone up and ran over to the other side of the garden. There was a big lemon tree covered with dark green leaves. She set the bone down and looked around. There were no wallabies watching and no bees buzzing around. But just then she spotted a beetle climbing along a twig. Cindy thought that perhaps the beetle might tell where she'd buried the bone. Maybe she should bury it somewhere else. She picked up the bone and ran into the bush. The grass was long, and surely nobody would think to look here for her bone and take it. There were no wallabies or bees or beetles in sight. She was just about to start digging a hole when a grasshopper jumped out of the grass. Cindy thought the grasshopper might tell where she'd buried her bone. And to make matters worse, there was a big spider watching her as well. Maybe she should bury it somewhere else. She was running out of places to bury it. She ran around the corner into a small clearing. It was so quiet here that Cindy decided to bury her bone right in the middle of it. There were no wallabies, no bees, no beetles, and no grasshoppers. But then she saw it. A butterfly. What if the butterfly told another dog where she'd buried her bone? Maybe she shouldn't bury it here. Maybe she should bury it somewhere else. She picked the bone up and ran off. She ran and ran and ran until her short little legs were so tired she couldn't run any further. She came back to the house and looked around. There were no wallabies, no buzzing bees, no jumping grasshoppers, no fluttering butterflies. This was it. This was the place where she would hide her bone. She ran under the house and kept looking around, but never saw another soul. She looked around some more. Had anyone seen her bury her bone? There were no other animals in sight. Feeling that her bone would be safe, Cindy ran back inside the house. woke up the next morning, she was hungry. She kept thinking about that big bone she'd buried. She ran out through the door into the fresh air. She suddenly remembered she'd buried it in the lawn near the swimming pool. She ran over there, but she couldn't find the pile of dirt showing where the hole was. She looked and looked, but all she saw was some wallabies watching her. Then she remembered she'd buried it in the garden near the rubbish bin. She ran over to the garden, but she couldn't find the pile of dirt showing where the hole was. She looked and looked, but all she saw were buzzing bees. Then she remembered she'd buried her bone near the lemon tree. She ran over to it, happily wagging her tail. Oh, that bone was going to taste so delicious. She looked under the dark green branches for a pile of dirt, but there wasn't one. Where did she bury her bone? She looked up at the lemon tree. All she could see were dark leaves and a beetle. Then she remembered she'd buried her bone in the long grass. She pushed her way through and looked all over for a pile of dirt where she'd buried her bone. She sniffed the air and ran all around. There was no pile of dirt. All she could see was a spider's web. She was starting to feel very hungry. Her tummy started growling. Where did she bury her bone? She ran inside to ask Sebastian the cat. He would know where it was. She jumped up on the couch next to Sebastian. "Where's my bone?" asked Cindy. But Sebastian didn't say a word. Then she remembered. "Under the house! I hope it's still there." She ran off as fast as her short little legs would carry her. And do you think she found it?